The sharp pain in my chest made my vision blur. I gripped the edge of the Thanksgiving dinner table, trying to steady myself as my stepson. Derek stood up, wine glass raised, his voice carrying across the room to our assembled family. A toast to Robert, still hanging in there despite his bad ticker. Must be tough getting old and feeling your body give out, eh? His wife Lisa smirked from beside him, and I saw her hand move subtly to her purse. That's when I knew. The pain wasn't my heart. It was poison. And they thought they were going to get away with it. But let me smile back at Derek, keeping my breathing shallow, playing along with their little game. Because what my stepson didn't know was that I'd been a Crown prosecutor for 32 years, and I'd sent men to Kingston Penitentiary for far less obvious murder attempts than this. More importantly, I had evidence, recordings, documentation, and in about 90 minutes, the RCMP would be walking through that door. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start 3 weeks ago, when this nightmare began. My name is Robert Callahan. I'm 67 years old, and I spent 3 decades prosecuting criminals in Calgary's Court of Queen's Bench. Murder, fraud, organized crime. I'd seen it all, argued it all, won most of it. I retired 2 years back after my wife Helen died from a stroke, sudden, devastating. 1 minute she was tending her garden at our ranch outside High River. The next she was gone. The doctor said it was quick, small comfort. Helen and I had built that ranch together over 35 years. 200 acres of Alberta foothills, with the Rockies visible on clear days. We'd raised cattle, kept horses, made it our sanctuary. After she died, the place felt too big, too empty. But it was all I had left of her, and I wasn't ready to let it go. Derek wasn't my biological son. Helen had him from her first marriage. He was 12 when we met, 17 when we married. I tried to be a good stepfather, paid for his education at the University of Calgary, helped him get started in the oil and gas industry. But Derek always had this edge to him, this resentment, like he blamed me for his mother choosing happiness over wallowing in her first husband's abandonment. When he married Lisa 5 years ago, I had concerns. The woman was a pharmaceutical sales rep who talked too much about money and not enough about anything else. But Helen had been thrilled to see Derek settled, so I kept my mouth shut. That's what you do for family, right? It was early November when Derek called. I was in my office, a converted bedroom where I still kept my law books and case files. Old habits die hard. Robert, how are you holding out? Well enough, Derek. Just going through some old files. What's up? Lisa and I were talking. Thanksgiving's coming up, and we thought maybe we should host it this year at the ranch. You know, big family gathering. Mom would have wanted that. The ranch. Our ranch. Except legally, it was just mine now. Helen had left everything to me in her will, with the understanding that Derek would inherit after my death. Standard arrangement. That's thoughtful of you both. When were you thinking? Next weekend. We could come out Friday, help you prep, do the whole traditional spread, turkey, stuffing, the works. Invite my cousins, Aunt Sarah, make it a real family affair. Something in his tone bothered me. Too eager, too orchestrated. But grief makes you paranoid, and I'd been alone too long. All right, Derek, let's do it. Perfect. Oh, and Robert, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. Business opportunity. Oil sands investment. Really solid returns. Maybe we could discuss it while I'm out there? There it was. The ask. Always an ask with Derek. We can talk, I said noncommittally. The week passed slowly. I cleaned the ranch house, aired out the guest rooms, checked the pantry. The place could easily accommodate a dozen people. Helen had designed it that way, always wanting a house full of laughter and family. Friday afternoon, Derek's black Ram, 2500, pulled up the gravel drive. He was alone. Where's Lisa? I asked as he grabbed his bags. She's driving up tomorrow morning with the food. Had some work thing she couldn't reschedule. You know how it is. I did know. It was a lie. I'd seen enough liars in courtroom to recognize the tell. Derek's left hand went to his collar when he was being dishonest. Always had, since he was a teenager. That's fine. Want some coffee? Actually, Robert, let's talk about that investment. I brought the prospectus. For the next hour, Derek pitched me on a tar sands venture in Fort McMurray. Required $750,000 minimum investment. Promised 40% annual returns. It was textbook fraud. The paperwork looked professional, but the company registration was 3 months old, and the principals had no track record I could verify. Let me think about it, I said. His jaw tightened. The window closes Monday. I need an answer this weekend. Then I guess you'll have your answer Monday. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the bedroom Helen and I had shared, staring at the ceiling, listening to Derek moving around downstairs. Around midnight, I heard him on the phone, voice low but urgent. Won't budge. Stubborn old bastard. We need that money now, Lisa. I don't care. Just bring everything tomorrow. I got up quietly, moved to the hallway. Derek's door was closed, but his voice carried. Pharmacy has the records. No, they can't trace it. Looks like heart attack. He's 67. Family history. It's perfect. My blood went cold. I crept back to my room, mind racing. Pharmacy. Heart attack. Lisa was a pharma rep with access to medications. The next morning, I woke early and went through Derek's room while he was showering. In his laptop bag, I found documents. Not oil sands investments. Debt notices. Derek owed $1.2 million to various creditors. There were gambling markers from the Stampede Casino in Calgary. Foreclosure warnings on his house. And at the bottom, a copy of Helen's will, with my name circled and a note in Derek's handwriting. $2 million plus property value. $3 million total? Under that, a printout about digitalis toxicity. Symptoms. Dosage. Detection windows. I photographed everything with my phone, put it all back exactly as I'd found it. Lisa arrived at noon with 2 others, her sister Jen, a nurse from Foothills Hospital, and Derek's cousin Mark. Both looked uncomfortable, like they didn't want to be there. Robert! Lisa air-kissed both my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. So good to see you. We brought everything for tomorrow's feast. She carried in bags of groceries, disappearing into the kitchen. I watched her carefully. She handled a small vial, slipping it into her pocket when she thought no one was looking. That afternoon I started feeling off. Nothing major, just a slight nausea, a heaviness in my chest. I'd had coffee that Lisa had made. I went to the bathroom and forced myself to vomit. Better safe than sorry. At dinner, Derek announced we'd be doing Thanksgiving a day early, Saturday instead of Sunday. More convenient for everyone's schedule, he said. I didn't argue. I just watched Lisa watching me, her eyes calculating every sip of wine I took, every bite of food. That night, I called my old colleague, James Morrison, now a staff sergeant with the RCMP K Division in Calgary. Jim, it's Robert. I need a favor. Unofficial for now. What's going on? I explained everything. The debt, the digitalis research, the overheard conversation, my suspicions. Jesus, Robert. You're talking about attempted murder. I'm talking about being careful. Look, I need you to come out to the ranch tomorrow evening, around 6, Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to force their hand, make them think I'm having a heart attack. I need you to witness it and bring a medical team who can run a tox screen immediately. That's risky. I'm 67 years old with a Crown prosecutor's pension and a $3 million estate. I'm already at risk. This way, we get them caught red-handed. Silence, then a sigh. All right, but Robert, if this goes wrong, it won't. I've been catching criminals for 32 years, Jim. Trust me. Saturday morning, I palmed every pill Lisa offered. For your blood pressure, Robert. Can't be too careful at your age. I tucked them in my shirt pocket, saved them in a small baggie I kept hidden in my desk. The family arrived throughout the day. Aunt Sarah, Derek's 2 cousins, some old friends of Helen's, who Lisa had inexplicably invited. The house filled with noise and cooking smells and laughter that felt forced. Lisa stayed close, always offering me drinks, always with that solicitous smile. You look tired, Robert. Maybe you should rest before dinner. I'm fine, Lisa. Thank you. By 5 o'clock, the table was set. 23 people crowded into our dining room, the same room where Helen and I had hosted countless dinners, celebrated countless holidays. At 5:30, I excused myself to the bathroom. In my pocket was one of the pills Lisa had given me earlier. I'd had it tested by a colleague that morning, rushed to a private lab. Digoxin, cardiac glycoside. In small doses, it treats heart conditions. In accumulated doses, it causes fatal arrhythmia that looks exactly like a heart attack. I crushed the pill, mixed it with water, drank half. Enough to cause symptoms, not enough to kill. I hoped. Within 10 minutes, I felt it. Racing heartbeat, dizziness, nausea, shortness of breath. I stumbled back to the dining room, gripping the door frame. Every eye turned to me. "Robert?" Aunt Sarah stood up, concerned. I made it 3 more steps before I grabbed my chest, the real pain mixing with performance. I went down on one knee. "Call 911!" someone shouted. But Lisa was already there, kneeling beside me, her voice syrupy sweet. "Don't worry, Robert. I'm trained in first aid. Let me help." Her hand went to her pocket. I saw the flash of a syringe. "No!" I knocked her hand away, falling fully to the floor. The room erupted in chaos. Through my blurred vision, I saw Derek standing back, not helping, just watching with those cold eyes. Waiting. Lisa leaned close, whispering so only I could hear. "Just let go, old man. It'll be quick. Derek will take good care of your ranch." That's when the front door burst open. "RCMP, nobody move." Jim Morrison came in with 4 officers and 2 paramedics. Lisa jerked back, the syringe falling from her hand. Derek's face went white. The paramedics were on me immediately, checking vitals, starting an IV. One of them, following my earlier instructions to Jim, immediately drew blood samples. "What's going on?" Derek demanded, but his voice shook. Jim picked up the syringe with gloved hands, bagged it. "Mr. Callahan contacted us yesterday with concerns about threats to his life. We've been monitoring the situation." He turned to Lisa. "I'm going to need you to empty your pockets, ma'am." She refused, so a female officer did it for her. Out came 2 more vials of digoxin, a small bottle of crushed pills, and handwritten notes about dosing schedules. Derek tried to leave. 2 officers blocked the door. "Am I under arrest?" he asked. "Not yet," Jim said. "But I'd advise you to stay put until we sort this out." The paramedics stabilized me, though I was never in real danger. I'd known the dosage, known what to expect, controlled the variables. Old prosecutor habits. From my position on the floor, I looked up at Derek. "When were you planning to do it? Tonight? Tomorrow? How long have you been poisoning me?" His face crumbled. "I don't know what you're talking about. Your wife just tried to inject me with what I'm guessing is a fatal dose of cardiac medication. I've been collecting the pills she's been giving me all week. Had them tested. Digoxin. Accumulates in the body. Causes heart failure that looks natural in elderly patients." I pulled the baggie from my pocket, handed it to Jim. "I also have recordings of your phone conversations about needing money, about making it look like a heart attack. I have documentation of your $1.2 million in debts. And I have your research on digitalis toxicity." The room was silent except for my labored breathing, which was clearing now that the paramedics had given me activated charcoal. Aunt Sarah sank into a chair, her face ashen. "Derek, please tell me this isn't true." He couldn't look at her. Or at me. He just stared at the floor, his hands shaking. "Lisa, though." Lisa went on the offensive. "This is insane. Robert's clearly confused, probably had a stroke. We were trying to help him." "Then explain the vials in your purse," Jim said. "Explain the notes about dosing. Explain why you just tried to inject him with medication without calling for medical help first." She had no answer. Jim read them both their rights. Attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud. The charges came out in that steady voice I remembered from 100 trials when witnesses crumbled under cross-examination. As they led Derek out in handcuffs, he finally looked at me. "I'm sorry, Robert. The debts just kept growing. I thought if I could just clear them, start fresh. Mom's inheritance, the ranch, it was just sitting there. So you decided to kill me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Lisa said it would be easy, painless, that you were old anyway. That cut deeper than anything else. Not the murder attempt. The casual dismissal of my life because I was old anyway. Get him out of here, I said quietly. The paramedics wanted to take me to the hospital, but I refused. The blood tests would confirm the digoxin levels, provide the final piece of evidence. But I knew I'd survive. I'd calculated it that way. The dinner, of course, was ruined. Aunt Sarah apologized profusely, as if she was somehow responsible for Derek's choices. The other guests left quickly, embarrassed and disturbed. Jen, Lisa's sister, stayed long enough to give a statement. She'd known nothing about the plot, had been genuinely invited just for Thanksgiving. Mark, Derek's cousin, pulled me aside before leaving. Uncle Robert, I'm so sorry. I knew Derek was in trouble, but I never thought if I'd known. You couldn't have known. This isn't on you. But as I watched the taillights disappear down the drive, I wondered, had there been signs I'd missed? Had I been so buried in my grief over Helen that I'd failed to see how desperate Derek had become? Jim stayed after everyone left, helping me clean up the uneaten food, the scattered wine glasses, the medical debris from my dramatic collapse. You took one hell of a risk, he said, packing away turkey that would never be eaten. Calculated risk. I needed them to show their hand. What if she'd injected you before we got here? I was counting on her ego. She wanted to watch, wanted to be there for the final moment. Classic narcissist behavior. I've seen it in dozens of murder trials. He shook his head. Still, you're not a young man anymore, Robert. That's what they counted on. Me being old, confused, easy to manipulate. I sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. You know what the worst part is? Derek's right that I'm getting old. My hands shake sometimes. I forget words. I get tired easier. But that doesn't make my life disposable. No, Jim agreed quietly. It doesn't. The trial took 8 months. Derek's lawyer tried for a plea deal. Manslaughter. Reduced sentence. The Crown refused. This was premeditated. Calculated murder for profit. They went for attempted murder in the first degree. I testified for 3 hours. Walked the jury through every piece of evidence, every conversation, every suspicion. Showed them the vials, the research notes, the financial documents. Played the recordings from Derek's phone calls. Derek's lawyer tried to paint me as paranoid, suggested I'd manufactured the whole thing out of grief-induced delusion. Mr. Callahan, isn't it true that you've been struggling since your wife's death? That you've been isolated, depressed, perhaps not thinking clearly? I looked at the jury. I spent 32 years in this building, in rooms like this one, presenting evidence and arguing facts. Yes, I'm grieving. Yes, I'm old. But my mind is sharp, and the evidence speaks for itself. My stepson and his wife tried to kill me for my money. The digoxin in my bloodstream, in the pills they gave me, in the vials found in Lisa's possession. That's not delusion. That's attempted murder. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 months later. Derek got 12 years. Lisa got 15. In Canada, you serve 2/3 before parole eligibility. They'd both be middle-aged before they got out. As they led Derek away, he looked back one last time. I thought he might apologize, show some remorse. Instead, he just shook his head, like I'd somehow wronged him by surviving. That was 14 months ago. Now I'm sitting in the ranch house, Helen's garden visible through the window. I've hired a couple to help manage the property. Good people, retired teachers from Okotoks. The place doesn't feel so empty anymore. I volunteer twice a week at the Calgary Legal Guidance Clinic, helping seniors navigate estate planning, power of attorney, elder abuse issues. I tell them my story, warn them about the signs, financial pressure from family members, isolation, sudden health problems that don't quite make sense. Don't be a victim, I tell them. Stay sharp. Trust your instincts. And if someone tries to tell you that you're too old to matter, prove them wrong. Aunt Sarah visits sometimes. She's still devastated by Derek's betrayal, still trying to understand how Helen's son turned into a murderer. I don't have good answers for her. People make choices. Derek chose money over family, over me. The ranch is worth about $3.2 million now, with property values rising. My pension and investments add another $1 million. 4 million total that Derek thought he could get by killing me. I've updated my will. It all goes to charity now. The Calgary Women's Shelter, where Helen used to volunteer. The Foothills Hospital Foundation. The RCMP Veterans Association. Derek won't see a penny. Neither will any other opportunistic family member who might be waiting for me to die. I'm 68 now. My hands still shake sometimes. I still forget words. But I wake up every morning, tend Helen's roses, and remember that I'm alive because I stayed alert, stayed smart, and refused to be an easy victim. Derek thought age made me weak. Instead, it gave me 32 years of experience in recognizing criminals, gathering evidence, and building airtight cases. He thought I'd be easy to fool. He was wrong. The last time I saw him was at the sentencing hearing. As the judge read out 12 years, Derek's lawyer leaned over and whispered something. Derek nodded, resigned. Then he looked at me one final time. I didn't look away. I held his gaze and thought about what he'd said. Old anyway, as if my years, my grief, my life were somehow less valuable because I'd had the audacity to survive past 60. Well, I'm still here, still breathing, still tending my wife's garden and living in our house, and refusing to let anyone write my ending but me. Derek learned his lesson the hard way. So did Lisa. And the lesson was this: underestimate the elderly at your own peril. We've survived decades for a reason. We've learned things, seen things, and some of us spent our careers putting people exactly like you in prison. I got my life back, my home, my dignity, and the satisfaction of knowing that a 6-7-year-old man with shaky hands and a broken heart can still outsmart 2 desperate killers and walk away victorious. That's justice. Canadian justice. Slow, methodical, and absolutely certain. And for me, it was enough.